Um, Often, I meet, Heather, I kind of address this question to you, but to the whole panel as well, because I meet with many people like you. Well, they're actually not like you. And in those meetings that I have with them, I find they're very risk adverse to change. Although the biggest risk they can take, I think, is not changing. And as I talk to them about new technology, about working with America's charities, and talk to them about the millennials, they come back to me and say, but our retirees are used to paper forms. And it's very difficult to have a person like yourself, but again, it's not you, but it's people like you, who are in roles like yours, to embrace what's coming and to really embrace that. And I feel that in their roles, the biggest mistake they think they can make is making a mistake. So they do nothing. They just stay in a place that feels safe to them, which really is the biggest risk that they can take, is to stay in that same place. So I would just love the panel's feedback on how do you encourage a person like Heather but not Heather? Because she's sitting here, right? So she's in a different mindset, but most of her colleagues aren't right now. How do you encourage those individuals to take what to them is a big risk, but is actually the smart and the safer thing to do, to begin exploring new ways to really engage millennials?
Change is scary, and I'm definitely a risk-averse person. I think part of what gets me here is it's the combination of the alignment with our firm strategy. So again, for me, knowing that our people are our biggest asset, being able to see how my programs play a role in recruiting and retention of high-performing staff that share our values, that makes it kind of a no-brainer for me that we have to go into this space. I also think there are a lot of people who are doing really great things, and a good starting place may be for someone to get their toes wet in conversations like this. Like if you look at the Points of Light Foundation that we talked about earlier, or Boston College's Center for Corporate Citizenship had their annual conference in Boston these past 2 days. I think those are very safe environments for people to hear what other organizations are doing and how it's working for them. If we're talking about cultural change, these are long-term investments. These are not things you're going to measure quarterly, and even if you measure them annually, you cannot expect results right away. We had an earlier question about, how do you decide what tools or programs to invest in, and that's a tough part of my program too. I think people want to see results right away, but one of the things I always try to prepare our leadership for when we start something new is that we are a big ship to turn around, and just because something's not catching on immediately doesn't mean it's not a great idea. It may mean that we haven't figured out a good way to communicate through social media or get to people where they're listening. But I don't know if that brings some comfort too, that this is not, you don't have to throw away everything that you knew. You can start to make baby steps that are going to take people with you. In fact, I view it as, and I was talking to someone about this earlier, it's our jobs, people in roles like mine in corporate responsibility or corporate social responsibility, for private businesses, public businesses, I think it's our job to stay one step ahead of our key stakeholders. So if I get too far ahead, no one's going to follow me. And on the other hand, if I don't move, they're going to trip over my falling body on their way to the next place, and they'll define where we're going instead of me having any control over that, because despite what Mark says, I do live with a little bit of delusion that I have some ability to steer the ship. But I think though you don't have to be that far ahead. You just have to start taking those steps that align with your strategy that will start taking you toward these trends that, the good news is this has been around long enough too that if you read people's corporate responsibility reports or go to some of these conferences, there is already good evidence out there that this is working for organizations.
I would say if we know that fear is a motivator that's keeping them from changing, it's something that makes them stand still, then we know that fear is, if you elevate fear on the other side, that they will change eventually, right? So, you know, what I would always do is I would try to elevate that fear through a way where I connect what employee engagement does to overall profitability of firms, right? At the end of the day, there will be someone upstairs who, if you show them that, you know, if employee engagement goes up by 20%, you know, firm profitability or firm productivity goes up by 42% or something like that. Those types of metrics instill not just fear in that individual who's making a decision on the campaign, but it also makes the CEO think about, am I making the right decisions on how I'm dealing with my employees? Like, again, you gotta realize you're going into these places and you're trying to change a culture. You're looking at a group of people that are, you know, getting ready to hit, you know, head on with a completely different generation that has completely different values, and they don't really know how to absorb that impact. And you have to be the person who shows them how to, you know, slow it down so that this is more of a combining of resources and the combining of input. So, you know, I would start from that point. I would elevate the conversation. I would say, you know what? I have this great infographic that shows what employee engagement does to, you know, firm profitability over a period of time, right? And, you know, you can sit and wait and see this happen on your spreadsheets, or you can take my word for it right now and try to engage these employees in a more significant way, right? And let them make a decision from there.
The cost of turnover would be a good
Right.
example too. Maybe if you can get to Mark's point about fear, what is keeping them up at night, and how would this answer some of those concerns?